Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Lady Adey. So, my first question to you is, what was your childhood like?
My childhood is interesting when you look back, because I've got 60 years to look back now. And of course, the late 60s and the early 70s were of their time. Um, I had I think a relatively hard childhood, but a good childhood. I was well loved by my parents, and that's
Hmm.
all that matters. We went through the strikes of the steelworks and various other bits in the family, but it's not now when I look back at the sort of childhood my granddaughter's getting, and they are just worlds apart to what happened in the late 60s and 70s. But in the whole, I would say, yeah, my parents loved me and I had a really good childhood because of that. um, there's 7.5 years difference between me and my brother, so I was almost treated like a only child in lots of
Mm,
ways too.
okay. And did you enjoy school?
No, I didn't. I hated school. I hated it with a vengeance.
Hmm.
I didn't get on well even in the infant school. My mother was a teacher. She later on became a head teacher. And initially, when I went to school, I went with her and I went into her class, and it was great. And then she decided that she didn't want me to be spoiled or favoured. Therefore, I got sent to a school where I wasn't spoiled or favoured, and I didn't like it whatsoever. So I struggled. I struggled desperately at school,
Hmm.
and when I got to senior school, I just butted against authority. Just
Mm,
did not meet where I was. I left school with 2 O levels, one in RE and one in drama. So,
hmm.
and they're only because they were the teachers I liked. So, you know,
Yeah,
really, really did not get on with school
yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah. And did you have any problems at school?
Well, I did, but I didn't know until much later on why. And later on, it became obvious as to why.
Hmm. And would you like to tell the audience why?
Yeah, I certainly will. I will be preempting one of your questions, which is, did I go to university or to have further education? After school, I went and did secretarial work, and I loved further education. Absolutely adored it. I felt I was treated like an adult, and I just responded so well. I had my family, but I went back to further education. I did teaching qualifications in adult education, and I did my MBA. And when I did my MBA and all the Master in Business Administration, and which is to a degree, I discovered then. Well, my daughter was doing her GCSEs at the time, and they
Mm,
discovered that she was dyslexic.
mm,
And wasn't a great deal of a problem, but we were talking about it, and I said to her, well, you're telling me you've got these difficulties, and how difficult it is to read the words. Well, everybody has that. And she said, no, Mum, only if you're dyslexic. So I went and got checked. So I was in my late 30s when I realized that I was dyslexic, which could explain a lot of the difficulties at school of being
mm,
told I was lazy, being told I was thick, all sorts of things, come out, and you think, do you know what? And then because the way we are now and the support, it meant I could type instead of write for my exams, which I
mm,
am a speed typist. I can't read my own writing, but I can type like the wind. So that was perfect for me. And given extra time in the finance sections of the MBA, just meant I had that time to really think through the questions
mm.
and passed. So it yeah,
Brilliant.
further education, love it, love it, love it.
Good, good. And you said that you had a brother. Did you have any other siblings?
No, no, no,
No.
just my brother.
So
Yeah,
is
just
he older or younger than you?
he's 7.5 years older than me.
So
So
you were baby sister.
I really was, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So what was your first job? Because you said about education that, so we've discussed that question. So what was your first job did you do when you left school?
My very, very first job as a Saturday girl was in the library. So I
Mm-hmm.
was surrounded by books then, and that was just great. But I didn't like the thought of being a librarian as a job for the simple reason it was very formalized, and I
Mm,
don't do formalized. So that was that. And then because I've got good secretarial skills, I did temping, which
mm,
again appealed because I didn't know quite what, it would be a different firm each week and meet new people. And though I did get fed up of being told how to use a photocopier every single time, and thinking,
mm,
I used to come back and go, I know how to use a photocopier, and then just spent half an hour showing me which buttons to press.
mm. So, um, when did you become self-employed? Was that sort of fairly recently, or
The
did you
first
have?
time I became self-employed was back in 1990s.
Mm-hmm,
I had a young family and we were a service family, so my husband was in the military. And at those times, if you wanted to run a business and you were on married quarters, you had to ask the group captain's permission to do so. So I did that and I just temped myself out
mm,
and got a few contracts. One contract was to do with desktop publishing. And so I learned the craft of typesetting,
mm,
and that was my first self-employment.
mm-hmm,
But I wound that business up because I was in a meeting where there was loads of engineers and they were waxing lyrical about
mm,
the printers that they were using, and they used to print the sell by dates onto eggs and other products. And I was their editor for the in-house magazine and doing the typesetting of the manuals. And
mm,
in this meeting, I was
mm,
so bored, but I wanted their passion. I
mm,
knew that the way they felt about their jobs was how I needed to feel about mine. So I finished the contract, closed the business down, and I went to work in the third sector, charitable sector, and started my first job there with the Royal National Institute for Deaf People, as it was called then.
mm-hmm,
And then with the MBA, I worked as the CEO for Family Matters Institute. And then when we moved to Lincolnshire, I got a position. I bought into a franchise then for networking, and then also got a job as a CEO for a charity.
mm. Ah. So, when did you become an international speaker?
Well, the speaking came when I wrote my first book, which was called Unfrozen. And I wrote it when things didn't go well for me at work, so I had to leave. So it was a book that would just explain that journey and what it was really like. And my publisher was an American publisher. So going across there, I had to launch the book. So I became an international speaker when I was doing that. And actually, strangely enough, in a world of circles, which happens a lot, next month, or no, sorry, later this month, I'm going to be an international speaker on Zoom with a group that meet in Georgia. So
Ah,
Georgia Christian Fellowship, I should be speaking with them.
so that's exciting times.
Yes.
So, did your publishing business come first or the author come first?
The author came first.
The author
Yeah.
came first.
Yes, yes, it
Yeah.
did. We had an American author originally
Mm-hmm.
for Unfrozen. Then my daughter and I wrote a colouring book together. Our daughter's very creative and artistic, so she does all the pictures and the illustrations. And we found we really enjoyed working together.
Mm-hmm.
So we then started writing children's books together. And because of my background in typesetting, typesetting it wasn't a problem. And when we were with a different publisher, I suddenly realized that they didn't know as much as I did. and I began saying how I wanted the book laid out, and I ended up having to teach them how to do it at the same time paying them for the pleasure. And we kind of thought, this is not really how it should be. So from that perspective, that's when we said, let's self-publish.
Yeah.
So next book we did, which was Colouring 101, a quiz book about colouring, we self-published. Then we started writing Little Unicorn children's books. And at that point we said, you know, other people want to do this, but they don't know where to start. But we're further on the line, so we do know where to start. So then we became independent publishers. I started, asked a few people, if they got a book in them, started working on their books. Typesetting was never a problem, but that is big. That is really hard to do for people who haven't been trained in it. So we were able to offer that as a service. And then we just developed until we developed an author mentoring program, which is where we're at now as publishers and authors.
Brilliant.
Working on non-fiction, faith books, business books, and children's books.
Okay. So you write children's books. Is that fiction as well as non-fiction, or do you just stick to non-fiction for children as well?
It's fiction.
Fiction.
So I'm just going to change my background so I can show you some. Just gone off there. So we've got a series of Little Unicorn books, from like What's Your Name to Little Unicorn and the Nativity, because I'm sure there was a little unicorn at the birth of Jesus. So that's what that book's about. And our latest book is about the dinosaurs. It's Little Unicorn Discovers the Dinosaurs, and my daughter's done all the illustrations in it, which are quite pretty fantastic. And that came about because when you're an author, you have to do the marketing of your book.
Yeah.
So we would go into schools and go to literary fairs and things like that. And we found, because it's for sort of anything from 3 to 7-year-olds that we write for, the boys loved the Little Unicorn books. They absolutely adored them, but the parents wouldn't buy them. They said, no, unicorns are for girls, so they would distract them and move them away. So we thought, right, we're going to write a book with dinosaurs in. So Little Unicorn Discovers the Dinosaurs, so boys and girls, but it's also linked to the curriculum because it's all about eating habits. So we have a baby dinosaur being born, then it has to find its mother, and along its way it meets the other dinosaurs who are having their dinner. And so he's offered the dinner all the time. So that's how we talk about food. So that's the little dinosaur emerging from its egg.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're quite excited about that. We get very involved with our stories and the other stories. So this book's literally just coming out very, very soon, which is called The Navistar. And it has got the most beautiful, beautiful drawings in it of the Navistar, and a lovely poetic story from Jenny Anderson Temperley. So we're really excited to produce this, and a whole load of different children's books as well as adult books. This is a book that's come out, Miley's Mind, by Katie Goodacre, and it's through the dog, but it's about a child being bullied, really, and it's all about mental health for children.
So where can people get these books if they're interested?
They're all on Amazon.
Amazon.
And we help our authors publish on Amazon so that they can get 100% of the royalties. So Amazon, or through my website, which is ladeyadey.com.
Okay.
They're on there.
Brilliant. So in 2020 you wrote your first business book called Business Online.
That's right. I'd written some other business books before, because this is my 8th book, but this is the biggest one, Successful Business Networking Online. It's the first book out there dedicated to online networking. And yeah, it's 75,000 words. It's got 120 people, networkers from Lincolnshire and far away. also, got their viewpoints in it. The founder of BNI has done an endorsement, as has Professor Gary Bosworth, saying that all universities should have this as part of their business courses. And the foreword is by Nigel Botterill.
Ah.
So
Mm.
Brad Burton from 4N has did an interview that's in there. So it's packed full of really good stuff about business networking. And just like the Zoom calls just has transformed the way we do that. So
Mm.
I've got in there history of business networking and the do's and don'ts of online networking, and technology, and how to measure your networking.
Mm.
So, which is, I think, really important to know, is this network working for you, or should you be moving on and trying something else?
Mm.
Because
Mm.
it's a big ratio for investment of
Mm.
time and sometimes money.
Mm. And again, I presume people can either get that off your website or from Amazon.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if they mentioned your name to me, if they came directly, they could have a signed copy and I could give them a discount for mentioning Karen Bowen.
Okay, thank you. So there you go. So if anybody was thinking of writing their own book, what advice would you give them?
My biggest advice is start. Do
Mm.
it. Just start. Get those words down. And the interesting thing is, you don't have to always write it. Because people think, oh, I've got all that writing to do, because you need 25,000 words to have for your minimum word count for it to be a book. Otherwise, you've only got a pamphlet. So
Mhm.
when I was doing some of the research and the interviews, I did it through Zoom. I
Mhm.
taped it, recorded it, then I put it through otter.ai to get a transcript. And a 40-minute talk to the camera gives you 7,000 words. So it doesn't take long to build your material for a book. Or if you do blogs or if you do training, that kind of material can be converted into a book, or you just start straight and use your preferred style. But
Mm.
there's lots of different ways, but the main thing is to start. And
Mm.
you just write and write and write. You don't edit it. You don't try and pretty it up with the punctuation. You just write, because you actually use a different part of the brain for those two activities.
Mm.
So the brain that's creative, that is doing the writing, the copy, you need to get that in and get that out. You can go back and edit it later, but you use a different part of the brain. So if you try and do the two simultaneously, the brain just gets confused, and that's what leads to writer's blocks and people feeling, oh, I can't do this.
Mm. So that's interesting information, that is, because I didn't know that. And I
Yeah.
wonder how many other viewers know that. I'm going back to when I was a child and I used to write things and, stories and that. And so, what do you think of this fantastic story? And my father would look at it and say, and I'm dyslexic, you think that's good? Half the spellings aren't
Oh,
right. There's no punctuation, there's no full stops,
yeah.
and it's a load of rubbish.
Yeah.
And having done my NLP, I realise that that is a program that I have running or did have running in the background.
Head. Right. Yeah. It's so easy to be discouraged, and
Yeah,
discouraged by people who don't mean to discourage you. They just think, well, if I tell you it's wrong, you can correct it and then it'll be right.
yeah,
But people see a book and they see it in the final form.
mm,
So they kind of think it's automatically going to be like that. But it
yeah,
takes a lot of processes to get there.
mm,
So
mm,
you get, when we do the Little Unicorn, the children's stories, it's the idea that we run with first. We play with the idea, and then we can, editing stuff. Well, because I'm dyslexic, my daughter does that. She's got almost a photographic memory, so she's the direct opposite to me. So she does all the editing and proofreading of my work, or you get somebody else to do that bit.
mm, mm,
Um, but it comes later. What is important is either the message that you want to pass on, I only take on authors whose work I'm interested in. Only take on 20 a year because we have a very close one-to-one mentoring program, and I want to devote that time to that author and to their book. And within that, it's the idea. And when I talk to somebody first, what is the idea? What is the reason for you writing? Why do you want to do that? What is it you're going to communicate to your reader? Is it going to be of interest to them? Is it going to change their lives? Is it going to make a difference? Because books do that. Books have always been my friends. Way back here to the childhood, I had, as I said, quite a lonely childhood. But books were so important even back then. And well, I don't think they've really gone away, but they're saying particularly in lockdown, book sales have just gone mad.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's it. People have got the time, haven't they, that they didn't have beforehand.
That's right.
And they want something to escape from.
Yeah.
Rather than watching TV. So, if you had to live your life again, would you change anything?
If I was to live my life again, would I know what I know now? So if I could live my life again, and have the knowledge of the experience I've had in this life, then there'd be loads I would change. But if it was just to have a time again, I probably wouldn't, because I wouldn't be the person I am now without those experiences. And when things are hard, and sometimes they are, and you get hurt by people or by experiences, then it's coming through that. So there's probably bits I wish I'd learned sooner. I wish and I'm still learning. I'm learning not to take things personally when people have a disagreement with me, and that's one of the hardest things. So I think, would I change? It'd be changing parts of my personality for the better, I would hope, rather than the actual life. Because I've been married 40 years. I've got 2 incredible daughters and one granddaughter. Wouldn't change them for the world.
Okay. Are there any questions that the audience would like to ask?
Yes, can I ask? Hi, nice to meet you. I know I've just got the last end of it, what you were saying. Sounds really interesting. Can you just lift up the name of that book that you just shared? I thought that was really interesting.
Which one? My networking one? The children's
Yeah, the
ones?
networking one. That's right. The only one I got a gist of this.
Okay. It's Successful Business Networking Online, How to Build Your Business Using Powerful Online Connections. I used to go to networking meetings in person, and I'd do maybe 10 a month. Now I'm doing 10 to 15 per week online.
Yeah.
And I can travel around the world with that, and it's just, and I get a lot of referrals from them as well.
Fantastic. I'd like to know a bit more about that. I mean, just my experience of going to networking events, I found that with some networking events, you'll get like the same people. I was thinking about this morning, it's so weird. The same people are attending the same networking event. And I think I made a conscious decision to sort of try to go to different networking events so that I would start meeting different people from the normal crowd. And then I always found that there was always like a click group. So it's like, I don't want to be part of a click group. I want to be it's okay to be part of 1 or 2 that you enjoy being with. But I think it's really important to sort of, branch out a little bit more. And I quite like the idea of you saying that, is this networking group making a difference? Because, if you end up being in the same networking group, you're going to end up sort of like you're not really growing unless it's really giving more, you're getting a lot more feedback and improvement. That's what I found. Obviously you're going to get the ones that you really love anyway, so which you attend. Like Karen's.
I mean, the reason I wrote that book is because I've been doing networks. I've organised an Athena Women's Network. I've organised golf networking for women, and had a big that was part of the business I was in at one point. So I was always interested. When we came online, I wanted to know, do we just take what we learned in person and stick it online, or are there other things? And I think online is quite different. I think there's different protocols. I think there's different rules. I think it's a much fairer place. It's introverts and people with disabilities can get on a lot better online. But when you're in a group that meets regularly and it's the same people each week, or pretty much the same core people, for me, if the structure of the meeting is identical every week, then I think it's difficult. But if there's scope within that for those that know to not have to go through their 1 minute exactly the same, but in their minute talk about their business or talk about a theme or relate it and make it far more interesting, they can go deeper. And then that then becomes exciting. But it all depends on how the network organizer runs it. And then when you have the very large meetings, yes, you've got more people, but you have to make an impact quicker on them. Because any networking, online, offline, is all about the building relationships, because people only work with those they like, trust and know.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I have got, I mean, Karen knows and Mandy knows, I have got a book well, I've got 2 now. And I wanted to know, how important is timing when you're promoting your book? Because I'm writing a poetry book, and I've already got the poems ready. It's just getting my title sorted, and I've already started another book as well. I don't know if you know about that, Karen, but I started another book as well. I've written 2 pages already, so I'm quite chuffed about that. And that's more around business and improving yourself. So my question really is, how important is timing, and how do you promote? Like, I've just recently been on a radio show. I'm going on another one soon. But I've just wondered, like, what kind of steps can you put into place to get your book out there?
I think the timing of when your book is released is really quite crucial. And I think every book has its own timing within it. I view writing a book like being pregnant. To me, it's just like a pregnancy, having a baby. So when you have that initial book idea and you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to write on this subject, or however you're going to do it, that to me is like having the sex. That is really the sexy, great fun part of the book's life. Then you've got the pregnancy, and the pregnancy is all about writing. It's writing the copy, and some pregnancies go really well and others have bumps along the way, and it's the same with your book. Then you come to the birth. The birth of the book is the day it gets printed. It's printed, it's out there. Then you have the baptism or the christening, and that's your launch of your book. And then comes the parenting. And as you know, parenting lasts for a very long time. And that parenting of the book is your distribution and your marketing, and really the long slog of getting out to your readers.
Okay.
But you choose when it's going to be launched, and depending on the subject of your book, it's good to link it with some big world event or a world day. So when the networking book came out, it was just a month from the day that the internet was born.
Wow.
Came out. So we made the 29th of October World Online Networking Day, and we've registered it as such, so that every time that comes up, so will my book be. Hey, look, do you remember this? And it depends on what your subject is, but there's days for everything. And if it's linked with a charity or a topic like that, there's working with somebody's book, and it's very much about fathers, and so Father's Day will be the day we launch it. The Little Unicorn books, April the 9th, I think is National Unicorn Day, celebrated more in Scotland than anywhere because of their coat of arms. And when the dinosaurs, there's a National Dinosaur Day in June. So we'll probably delay our launch till that day, so that we, so the media have more to talk about rather than just, oh, someone's produced a book, it's their book, and it's also X, Y, and Z. So it all begins to link. So that's what we try and find, some connection for when you launch, so that it gives you the best way of promotion that you can on the day that your book comes out.
And is it quite expensive, really? Well, I don't know much about ISBN numbers, but you need to order an ISBN number. A friend was mentioning. So how do we go about doing that?
The ISBN number is the number that goes on the back of the book, usually just above the barcode, and the barcode is the ISBN number too. That number gives you the name of the publisher, and it also gives a unique name for that book, and you need that for it to be a published book, otherwise it's only a printed book. And it means that your book gets lodged with the British Library, and the place to get you those ISBN numbers is from Nielsen's.
Nielsen.
So it's I can never remember whether it's IE or EI, but it's Nielsen's, SEN at the end. On my podcast, Ladey Adey Show, I've got a whole feature about ISBNs and how they are crucial. But whoever owns the ISBN number is the publisher, whether that's yourself or you go to a publishing house. And yes, it costs a little bit, but my warning is, do not get a free one. When you go onto Amazon or KDP, the direct Kindle publishing, or other, plenty of places say, oh, I'll give you a free ISBN. Do not take it, because the moment you do that, they own your book.
Oh, wow.
And they can stop you from doing things. So you have to check. And if you go with the publisher, because we're authors first, publishers second, when we have our authors on board, yes, we have the imprint, and yes, we have that ISBN number, but we are very free, and we say to the authors, it's your book, you do what you want with it. If you want to break it down later, make them into your chapters into lead magnets, that's fine. Some publishers don't allow that. I've got one book, I was talking with an author, she wants to make her book into an audiobook. We would have no problem with that whatsoever. Her existing publishers will not let her do it. They don't want to do the audiobook themselves, but they won't release her the permissions of her own book to do that. So you have to be really, really careful, because you don't know at first, and you just think, oh yeah, that's great, I don't need to pay anything, and they're doing this, that, and the other. But there's a cost later on, particularly if you want control of your book. We give 100% control, 100% copyright, and 100% royalties to our authors, because we're on the author's side and we want to make that the best book it can possibly be.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you've said that. It's really, really good. The other thing that happened as well, people, like, especially with poetry, they were asking me to share the poetry. I was really reluctant to share. I've not shared it. I've shared it when I've been on a live show and or recorded show, but I've never given them a copy of my poems, because my book's not launched, and I'm still wanting to, and I had to insist. I said, I don't mind sending you the list of what I'm going to read, but I'm not sending the copy of the poem. I know it's out there,
because once it goes out like that on a PDF, you've lost control of it.
right.
And even though you might have a copyright symbol on the bottom, it's, you know, it's still, you know, out there and people can nick it. Whereas when it's within a book, they can't, and it becomes an entity in itself then. Oh,
well, I'm glad I made that decision, because even when I read the first one, a guy who plays the guitar, he goes, oh, can I have a copy of that? And I said, well, I'm not in the habit of sharing my poetry copies to people yet, until my book is published.
Well, unless he was thinking that he could make a song out of it, and then you have a different deal. Or you say, yeah, I can, but you need to sign a contract how you will use it. So you enter into a contractual agreement with somebody, and then you can release your poem that way.
Okay.
It's just about protecting your intellectual rights.
Yeah.
Which is important.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And then I had one lady saying, oh, if you haven't got your name sorted out, shall we do it together? And I'm like, I think it's a personal thing about my name of my book. So I don't mean to be rude, but it's something that I want to do, kind of like, with myself, really, you know. And it was nice of her to want to help, but I just thought, I don't know, maybe I'm holding on to my stuff too much, you know, but I think it's important as well to keep your stuff
Yeah.
to
Particularly
yourself.
if you've got ambitions for it to be in a book, then you're quite right, and there'll be a time for it to be born.
Yeah.
And then it is in the public domain, but it's in the public domain protected by copyright.
Okay. Brilliant. That's good to know that. And I will research that. How do we get in touch with you then? Sorry.
Through my website, ladeyadey.com. There's an E in Lady, so Ladey.
Okay.
You can find me very easily because it's an unusual name.
Yeah.
And my email is lady@ladeyadey.com.
Ladeyadey.com. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant.
Yeah,
it's really good.
From anyone who's just to explore the ideas they have, and
Yeah.
then I think it's just important for people to know their options, so they can then decide, right, yeah, I want to do this, or I'm going to try that. But they've got enough information to start, and start writing the book is the important thing.
Well, Karen and Mandy's had the pleasure of listening to some of my poetry, so I'm quite chuffed about that, and some other people. And there is one particular poem, I won't mention it right now, but there was one particular poem that I might even just create a whole something around it. I've got some ideas I'd like to explore. And so even though it could be in my poetry book, I'm thinking, I don't know, I've got some ideas to mix it up with. So I would really, really like to pursue that.
Well, it's your copyright, so you can do what you like.
Yeah, so and I really liked what you said about the about, you know, either chapters from your book or the day you launch it is really important, connecting it with others. I think that's a fantastic idea. I'll have to look at that with the other bit that I want to do, so that'll be really cool. Maybe we can have a chat about that, Carol. But yeah, it's really been good. I'm glad I come on the call.
Good. Have you got any questions, Mandy?
Yeah, I have actually 2 questions I have. One is, do you prefer to do the children's books more than your business books? That's my one question. And my second question is, have you got your books in other languages, your children's books?
Right.
Okay.
The first question there, which do I prefer? I think each book is so different. As I say, I say it's like having a baby. So my book babies, I haven't got favorites. They're my book babies, and I enjoy very much the research side. I get a big high out of that, and seeing it build and seeing the words suddenly mount up till you've got a book. I love that. When it comes to the children's books, it's different because I'm working far more closely with my daughter then, because we do it together. And that is just an absolute delight. And I feel so blessed that we can work together and enjoy each other's company. And when we're very intensely working on words and imagery for the children's book, we find we end up thinking very similarly together, and it's always a challenge who's going to verbalize what the other person's thinking, because when people say the same thing at the same time, well, we do that, but it's one step ahead, that one's saying it and the other one's thinking it, and it's like, I was just going to say that, but it's the other person says it. So we have an extra bond when we do that. She works with the other books as well, because she does all the covers and she does any illustrations that I need in my non-fiction books. And then it's a question of, and because she gets me and I can't draw, I will say, right, this is kind of what I'm wanting, and I'll just describe it to her, and then next moment she's done it. It's absolutely incredible. But she's done more and more of the digital illustrations. So in Little Unicorn and the Dinosaurs, we've got a monkey puzzle tree, and that took her 3.5 days to do that. She literally created it a leaf at a time, a needle at a time. So that monkey puzzle tree is featured on a number of pages because it took her so long to do it. She wanted to make sure it was going to appear in different parts of the book.
Wow. Amazing.
And as for translation, that's something we're sort of looking into at some point, but we haven't got there yet. We haven't done that, and I need to find out about how the rights work when you do translations, because I know you could do it from this country, but sometimes you need translation rights to publish in another country if you want it to go into their equivalent, the British Library, and so forth. So sometimes that's made, it's not just a question of translating it. So, but that's something we've sort of considered, but we haven't done it yet. We're still waiting.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Actually, I've got one more question. Sorry, Karen.
I was going to say Amanda's in Germany, so she's got German grandchildren, so
Right.
you know, there could be a market out there for it.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
amazing.
if it's something you'd like to work with us on, we could talk that through at some point.
Well, I'm sure Mandy can do it.
That's that.
Yeah. Oh, it's gone out of my head now, the question I was going to ask. It'll come back to me, don't worry. No, I can't think of it now.
Can't think of that. Well, you can always get in touch with Ladey Adey at a later stage.
Yeah, I will be in touch. I definitely would like to have a chat with you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
That'll be good. Yeah, I think I've got to get this book out there next year.
that's it. So that's it. You've put the next year.
You're recording as well. Oh my God.
That's it. It's out on recording now. So we will expect to see Siraji's poetry book.
Absolutely.
Next year.
Christmas 2021. Yeah.
That's it. Good market
Yes.
then. 2021.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Can I, if I get my title ready and have the ISBN number, can I start promoting it? Is that a good thing?
You start promoting it and telling people what you're doing to create an interest, create a tribe, create so you've got people who want to buy as advanced sales, and just to keep them in the loop of what's happening, what stage you're at, that sort of thing.
Okay.
I mean, people often ask me how long it takes to write a book, and my answer is, well, our mentoring program that we use, we say if somebody is working full-time at the same time, then they're finding part-time spots to do their writing in. So for that perspective, we say between sort of 6 months to a year. If you're writing it full-time, then obviously that changes the timing of how quickly you can get your copy ready, how quickly you can get it proofread, beta read, and edited. So then it goes to what's called clean copy, and once it's at clean copy, then it's typeset, so it looks like a book then, and then the book covers are designed from the content.
Interesting. And you mentioned about whether you want to be published, you have a publisher by somebody else or yourself publish. What are the basic advantages and disadvantages of either, or is there like, what would be, I'm just trying to establish what would be a better route, or is it what makes you make that decision? Sorry, I'm asking loads of questions in one go.
If you're using a publisher, they know the ropes, so they will be able to guide you through where you need to be, so your learning isn't such a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
With that, there is shared control, but there's lots of things that a publisher has to do, and that's whether you're a self-publisher or not. You have to know you have to set it up on Nielsen's, you have to send copies to the British Library, you have to, there's lots of background detail stuff you have to do, which you don't know until you get to that point, whereas obviously the publisher does know those bits that has to be done. So a lot of it is whether you want to be a self-learner and learn it all the hard way, or whether you want to be someone who can get it out quickly and learn from someone else.
Okay. And when I find, sorry, go on. Well, I was going to go on.
I was going to say, and it depends what you want from your publisher and what publishers offer different things. We offer a mentoring program, others don't. There's some publishers do more in marketing once the book's out there, others don't. So you have to be quite savvy on who you're using and whether they charge for services up front or whether they take a percentage of your royalty. Again, there are different business models for each independent publisher, and the big boys are even, that you can't send an unsolicited script to one of the large publishing houses. You have to go through a literary agent, which costs money too. Yeah, so it's doing the homework and then deciding what's best for you.
Okay. I think when it comes to writing the poetry, I don't feel, some people say you should just sit and decide you're going to write. But when it comes to my poetry, I can't do it. I feel like it happens when I feel it comes to me that I can write with my poetry. I'm not sure about my book because that came to me as well, so I don't know. What are your tips on helping to, just 3 basic tips on helping to write your book?
You need to know yourself, so you need to know if are you a morning person or an evening person.
Yeah,
I do my writing for 4 o'clock in the morning, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then breakfast, and then start of day's work. But talk to me at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and you get no nonsense. You get nothing from me because I'm done. Whereas my daughter is an evening person, so she does her creative writing and the way she thinks late at night. And then it's blocking it. Are you a person who likes regularity? Therefore, 10 to half an hour writing time a day works, or do you like to do it in bigger blocks at a weekend? So it's knowing your lifestyle, it's knowing your personality, and then it's working within that, and that's how you work out your timing. There's a really good book called On Writing by Stephen King, and he talks about how he writes his books, but then he's working full time at it, so it's a job. So he doesn't leave the table until he's got X number of words done. And so when you're doing it part-time, or when you're doing it when you've got other things going on, you have to fit it round what else you're doing. But I say to my authors, it's not a lifetime sentence. You're looking at a relatively short time. You're looking for to do it seriously, 6 months to a year, and you'll get all your copy done within that time. I've got a tool that I use which tells you how many, you say how many words you want to write. So 25,000 gives you a good sized book. You might work that out with the number of poems that you do. And from that, you can soon work out how many words you need to do a day or a week.
Okay.
So there's tools out there to help you work out what your quantity needs to be. Quality is another subject.
It's 25,000 words. Does that apply to poetry books as well?
Now, I think with poetry books, it's number of poems.
Okay.
Because, again, it needs to be sizable anthology. I would be looking at least 50 poems to make a book. If you're asking a reader to pay £10-15 for a book, they want to have enough in there to really get their teeth into and enjoy. Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. Okay. I've probably got about more than that, probably. So yeah. That's
Any
good.
more questions? No? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming and joining afternoon tea with us.
You're
Lady
welcome. It's been
Adey.
great fun. Great fun.
And,
That's good.
yeah, hopefully people will purchase your books.
Yeah, be
Especially
super
for
if you'd like to do
Christmas.
that.
Christmas is coming
Yes.
up.
That's right, especially the children's books.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, I will put your links on, because this will be going onto YouTube.
Okay.
I will then share it into my Facebook groups and my LinkedIn group, and then I'll also send you a copy of it as well,
Perfect. That
so that
sounds
you
great.
can
Thank you.
do what you want to with it as well.
Okay.
So you can put it onto your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, that's right. And tag me in, and then I can help you share it and tell
Yeah,
more people
that's it.
about that.
That's it. So thank you, and I wish you all the best with your publishing.
Thank you very much.
Okay.